I came up with a training drill for the Kusarigama that I think is pretty useful and novel. It's here at one of my favorite training spots. And there are railroad tracks nearby, obsolete ones, so earlier I salvaged this nice, hefty chunk of wood. And it's pretty rotten and beat up, but it's still thick and heavy. Pretty useful for our purposes. I like striking actual solid objects, not just things that shatter instantly, right? It's got some weight to it, it's dense, but on the outside it's kind of a little bit soft and brittle. Because, you know, the Kusarigama was not used on the battlefield, right? You're fighting against an unarmored opponent. And so to realistically test the hand shock, which is a real factor with this weapon, that was a surprise to me when I first started training with it, as well as the potential bounce back of this nasty little weight here, which hits with tremendous power at the end of such a long chain, then you want kind of a body-like target. Something with some hardness, but also some give, and that's what striking this piece of wood gives me, because the point of the drill is to keep smacking it until you get it from the top of the hill, or at least where I'm starting this time, down to the bottom. It's also a target that's no bigger than, say, a thigh, so it's good for accuracy training. I'm going to zoom in a bit and watch the chain upon impact coming up. There's yet another wrinkle with this weapon. If you strike through, which is not always going to happen, one, can you keep it swinging? You better. And two, can you make sure you don't hit yourself? And you better make sure of that as well. By the way, none of these misses, like that one, are on purpose. That's better. It's a very tough weapon to calibrate with. Managed to only hit the grass a few inches behind it that time. And that's better. And here is the killer app of this exercise. The stick keeps shifting as it rolls down the hill, right, when you hit it. So sometimes it ends up horizontal, sometimes vertical, 45 one way, 45 another, you name it. Every time I get an opportunity then to completely reorient myself and say, well, now I want to strike, you know, the diagonal end that is furthest up the hill, because that's going to give me the most results on trying to get this thing moving. And watch the shockwave that goes through the chain after this hit and how I have to adjust to it. You really want to be attuned to how this thing is coming back at you. You know, that was a nice, profitable left-handed strike. So it kind of gamifies the training a little bit. And the longer this goes, the more fatigue becomes a factor. Like, this is not easy to keep that thing swinging. That's why you see me switching hands, taking breaks. And of course, just like with empty hand, the more tired you get, the worse your accuracy and technique gets. Lancing blow there, so at least I hit it, but that's not going to cut it. Now that got results. Let's look at this one in slow motion. You really have to see this in slow motion and from a distance to appreciate how crazy this weapon is. Look at all that chain, and watch how badly it undulates because of the solid hit. Yikes. I am probably the only person crazy enough to be able to say the following. I have hit myself multiple times with the 100% real deal. Luckily, they were all on the legs, and I can tell you, that chain coming back and hitting on the head, even with the post-strike decreased momentum, would be more than enough to put you down. I'm not saying you would definitely go 100% unconscious, but you'd be seeing some serious stars at a minimum. Back to this training exercise I came up with, notice the orientation work that I was talking about, like there, with that hit. It was lying horizontal, so I had to put myself on the same line as the stick and then try to strike it right in the middle, which I managed to. Then I missed a couple times. And that hit put it at an angle, so now I have to find a totally new vantage point to strike from. And just like in a fight, I'm changing position, moving around, while keeping the Kusari Fundo swinging. So this is a great overall training tool, I think. This forces you to work on footwork, accuracy, stamina, recovery as well, like with this upcoming strike. If you hit solidly enough, the chain might just decide, hey, we're done. Well, in a real fight, you have to be aware of that as it's happening so you can transition to melee mode. Like there, I could sense that the swinging portion was over. In a real fight, I would have to be backing up, getting the kama ready, stretching the chain out in front of me to block an incoming strike. Again, switching from long range to a short range mode. Although the argument can be made if you hit that solidly enough that the swinging ends by default, nothing else matters because your opponent is done. But it's wise to always train as if your opponent is still in the fight, even after delivering a hit, of course. Time to zoom back out. So you saw how much work that took. I finally made it to the bottom of the hill. There's a cement ring that runs around this thing, so once the log touches that, I figure I'm done. Do that a few times, which I did. I'm only showing you one of the downhill runs, and you have a heck of a half-hour workout/training session. Thanks.